Hi, and welcome to today's program on starting a solo practice, Part 2, Business, Legal, Tax, and Ethical Considerations. I'm your host, Cliff Enico, and the two things you need to know about me are that, number one, I am a solo practitioner. I've been a lawyer in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut for 40 years. 25 of those years have been spent as a solo practitioner working out of my spare bedroom, otherwise known as the home office in Fairfield, Connecticut. In that time and in the 40 years that I've been practicing law, I have worked with about 30,000 or so people who have started businesses of their own. Everything from mom and pop small businesses to tech startups to some companies that you probably have read about on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing privately owned companies in America. I have been responsible for many of those. I call myself an entrepreneur's lawyer, although that is not a trade name I can use ethically, but it's a good way to think about me. The second thing you need to know about me is that back in the 1990s, I was the host of the very first Shark Tank type television show for entrepreneurs. It was called Money Hunt, and it ran on public television, PBS, from 1994 to 2003. Basically the same format that Shark Tank follows today, except we didn't give out money on the show. We would invite entrepreneurs on, they would pitch their business plans, and then a team of experts would basically tell them what they were doing wrong and how to do things better. It was more of an educational type of show. So what we're going to be talking about today is the business side of things. And when you're starting a solo practice, you are an entrepreneur. That is the key lesson. You are just like every one of the clients that I have represented over the last 40 years, and you have many of the same challenges that they do. I mean, you are practicing a profession, and a profession that is rather heavily regulated, but at its core, it is still a business. It is impossible to be sued for malpractice if you do not have any clients. Okay, you have to be making money at this in order to justify all of the long hours that we attorneys put in for our clients. There has to be a pretty decent reward at the end of that to justify us doing that and giving this profession the years of our lives that we have. So this program is going to be talking about the business side of things. In our first part 1, we talked about getting started. We talked about choosing the right practice mix. Which areas of law should you be practicing in? And there's some things you have to think about when making those kinds of decisions. We then talked about whether or not you should work from a home office or whether you need to be working from a real office for which you pay rent. We then talked a little bit about how you organize the solo practice legally. Should you form a professional corporation or a PLLC? And then we spent a lot of time talking about how you manage a solo practice so that it continually makes money. How do you do your budgeting? How you do your financial planning? So with part 2, we're going to pick up where we left off on part 1. Today's segment, we're going to be talking about how to deal with clients, the pros and cons of client management. We're then going to talk about billing and collection practices, which is part of client management, obviously, making sure it doesn't really matter how much your billable hours are if the clients aren't paying you. We're going to give you some tips for how to deal with that, also how to deal with deadbeat clients, if and when they happen, and they do happen sometimes. And then last but not least, we're going to be talking about the ethical considerations of running a solo practice, specifically how you market the solo practice. Rules 7.1 through 7.5 of the Model Rules of Professional Conduct that deal with how you market and advertise a solo practice. So without any further ado, let's get started. Let's talk about dealing with clients. I like to say that there are 4 inconvenient truths about clients, with apologies to Al Gore. There are 4 inconvenient truths about clients. Number 1, you cannot run a business without them. A law practice without clients is called a hobby. It is something you can talk about at cocktail parties, but it doesn't make any money. The practice of law would be tons more fun without them. There is no two ways about it. I loved law school. I thought it was one of the most intellectually challenging things experiences I had ever had in my life up to that point. The problem, of course, is that most clients don't need cutting-edge services. It's just routine type things that they need, and that can get real boring after a while. It really can. The second inconvenient truth they are your boss. You do what they want, not what you want to do. One of the biggest letdowns that most of my entrepreneurial clients have when they start their businesses is no one pays you to do stuff that's fun or interesting or fulfilling. No one does. They want you to do the stuff that is scary, that is boring, that they're afraid of doing themselves because they're afraid they're going to screw it up.